What happens when a legendary singer with decades of grace and professionalism reaches her breaking point on live television in just 28 seconds? One dismissive comment will shatter years of respect and trigger the most shocking walkout in daytime TV history. Petula Clark sits across from Lorraine Kelly in the bright studio. The cameras are rolling. The audience is watching. Everything seems normal at first. Petula is there to talk about her incredible career, her new projects, and the music that changed generations. But what should have been a celebration quickly turns into something nobody saw coming. Lorraine begins the interview with a bright smile, welcoming Petula to the show as the audience applauds. Petula, elegant and poised as ever, returns the smile. She has done thousands of interviews and knows how these conversations should go. But within minutes, something feels different. So, Petula, Lorraine begins, leaning back with a casual wave of her hand. You've been around for quite a long time now, haven't you? The phrasing is strange. Petula's smile tightens slightly, but she keeps her composure. Yes, I've been very fortunate to have such a long career. Lorraine presses on, already glancing at her notes. Downtown, that was your big hit, wasn't it? That must have been what, 60 years ago now? Petula corrects gently, but Lorraine waves off the details. Right. But that was really your only major hit, wasn't it? The studio goes silent. Petula's polite expression fades. This is not the tone she expected. She responds firmly, listing her many hits and accomplishments. But Lorraine shrugs dismissively. Most people just remember Downtown. The tension begins to tighten as Lorraine continues, suggesting Petula's career fizzled out and implying she's now only relevant for nostalgia tours. Petula remains composed, but Lorraine pushes again, questioning whether she feels sad knowing her best years are behind her. The audience shifts uncomfortably. Petula's voice becomes calm but cold. My best years are not behind me. I am still recording. I am still performing. Lorraine laughs dismissively, making everything worse. She suggests nobody buys music from artists her age, and that Petula probably doesn't understand TikTok or streaming. The disrespect piles higher. Finally, Petula asks why she was invited if Lorraine had so little respect for her accomplishments. Lorraine brushes it off as honesty. But the damage is done. Petula reaches down, unclipping her microphone. The soft click echoes through the studio. Lorraine's smile drops. What are you doing? She asks. I'm leaving. Petula replies with quiet dignity. And just like that, the moment that will define the interview is set in motion. Lorraine's expression shifts from disbelief to irritation as Petula stands up. You can't just walk off, she protests, her voice losing its polished television smoothness. Petula places the microphone neatly on the chair. An interview requires mutual respect, she says. This has been anything but. The audience murmurs, sensing that the situation has escalated beyond repair. Lorraine tries to regain control, insisting Petula is being oversensitive, but Petula doesn't engage. She turns to walk away, prompting Lorraine to fire off another jab. You do realize how this makes you look, don't you? Walking off like some diva. Petula stops, turning back with a calm expression that contrasts the storm brewing around her. Her voice is steady. Let them think what they want. I know the truth. I've spent decades earning respect through hard work and professionalism. I don't need validation from someone who dismisses everything I've accomplished. Lorraine's face reddens. She stands up too, trying to salvage the moment. But her tone becomes harsh and defensive. She claims she was simply being real and that Petula is twisting things. Petula counters with unshakable composure, listing each dismissive comment Lorraine made, from diminishing her career to implying she doesn't understand modern music culture. The studio falls into deep silence as she speaks. Every word lands firmly, leaving Lorraine visibly rattled. Petula concludes with, "You've been condescending since the moment I sat down, and I won't stay where I'm not respected." With that, she turns again toward the edge of the set. Lorraine tries one last desperate attempt, shouting that Petula will regret this decision. But Petula doesn't flinch. The only thing I regret is not leaving sooner, she responds before stepping off the stage. Backstage, the atmosphere is electric. Crew members freeze mid-step, whispering in shock. Petula walks with calm assurance, her head held high. A young production assistant approaches nervously, apologizing for what happened. Petula offers her a kind smile, reassuring her that she's fine. Her warmth stands in stark contrast to the tension she just walked away from. Word travels quickly through the studio. Phones come out. People whisper that they've never seen anything like it. Petula's exit wasn't a tantrum. It was a statement. A refusal to tolerate disrespect, no matter how public the moment. Meanwhile, Lorraine is led into her dressing room. She stares at her reflection, confused why everyone seems to believe she was in the wrong. In her mind, she was being honest. She fails to realize that honesty without humanity becomes cruelty. And the audience hasn't missed that difference. Lorraine returns from the commercial break, visibly uneasy. Petula's chair sits empty beside her, a haunting reminder of what just occurred. She clears her throat, delivering a carefully crafted statement. She apologizes if anything she said was misunderstood. The phrasing immediately rings hollow. Rather than acknowledging her behavior, she implies Petula simply took things the wrong way. The audience senses the deflection. The energy of the studio feels tense and disoriented. Even as Lorraine attempts to transition into the next segment, the atmosphere remains awkward. Conversations in the audience during the break echoed a clear sentiment. Petula was right to walk out. Messages begin pouring into the show's social media pages, clips spreading before the producers can contain them. Viewers are outraged by Lorraine's tone. Several call her questions disrespectful, cruel, or ageist. But Lorraine doesn't yet realize how deeply her approach has backfired. She sits stiffly at her desk, rattled by the unusual loss of control. She has always prided herself on guiding interviews smoothly, even provocatively, but this time, her attempt to push boundaries crossed a line. Meanwhile, Petula sits in the back seat of her car, finally taking a breath. The glass windows blur the city lights as the vehicle pulls away from the studio. Her phone vibrates repeatedly. Friends, colleagues, longtime supporters checking in. She glances at the screen but chooses not to respond yet. She needs time to absorb everything. In all her decades in the industry, she has faced pressure, criticism, and challenges, but rarely outright disrespect. She recalls interviewers who were tough but fair, curious yet professional. Lorraine's approach was different. It wasn't just the questions, it was the dismissiveness. The way she diminished achievements earned through years of dedication. What unsettled Petula most was the underlying assumption that age equals irrelevance, that a career spanning generations could be reduced to one song. That longevity was something to mock instead of honor. But walking away wasn't about pride. It was about dignity. It was about refusing to let someone rewrite the value of her life's work in real time on national television. She imagines herself staying, smiling politely, swallowing the disrespect. The thought alone feels wrong. Leaving wasn't impulsive. It was necessary. As the car moves farther from the studio, Petula feels a sense of calm settle over her. The chaos behind her contrasts sharply with the peace she feels now. She knows she made the right decision. She chose respect over appeasement. And she knows others watching will understand that choice. At the studio, the aftermath continues to ripple. Lorraine's producers scramble behind the scenes, reviewing footage and discussing damage control. The studio audience whispers among themselves, recounting the moment Petula stood up and walked away with unparalleled grace. The consensus is clear: Lorraine crossed a line. But the host sits alone in her dressing room, replaying the confrontation in her mind, convinced she was simply doing her job. She doesn't realize that her pursuit of real moments came at the expense of basic respect. Petula's walkout becomes a defining moment not because of drama, but because of what it represents. A woman who has spent her life entertaining millions, refused to let someone make her feel small. It wasn't rebellion. It wasn't ego. It was self-worth. And audiences recognize that. Staff members quietly express support to one another. Some wonder how Lorraine allowed the interview to unravel so quickly. Others note that Petula remained calm, even kind, despite the insults. The contrast between the two women's behavior couldn't be clearer. Meanwhile, in the car, Petula finally checks a few messages. Friends praise her courage. Younger artists express admiration for her poise. Fans thank her for showing that age should never be used as a weapon. Petula smiles softly. She doesn't need validation, but the support warms her. She reflects on the decades she has spent performing, on stages, in studios, across continents. She thinks of the fans who still come to hear her sing, of the music that continues to connect with people of all ages. What happened at the studio is unfortunate, but it also serves as a reminder. Respect is non-negotiable. She has given the world joy, music, memories. She has earned a place in history. No dismissive remark can change that. She knows who she is, and she knows her worth. Back at the studio, Lorraine prepares to leave. She walks past crew members who avoid meeting her eyes. For the first time, she senses the weight of her actions. But instead of self-reflection, she clings to frustration, convinced she was misunderstood. Petula, on the other hand, steps into her home later that evening feeling lighter, not burdened. She pours herself a cup of tea, sits by the window, and allows the quiet to settle around her. She thinks about everything she has endured in her career, moments of triumph, moments of challenge, and realizes today was simply another chapter. A difficult one, perhaps, but an important one. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is choose yourself. Sometimes the strongest stance is walking away from anyone who refuses to see your worth. And Petula Clark did exactly that, gracefully, firmly, and without regret.